Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to Access Classroom, everybody. Our study is a little bit of a continuation from last week's study. We were looking at the last chapters of the book of Genesis. Today we're kind of picking up at the end of chapter 47. We're not going through every single detail, all right? We're kind of getting an overview of some things. This week's Torah portion, we actually started reading the book of Exodus this week. If you haven't read this week's portion, I hope you get an opportunity today to start reading. It's interesting to note that between the books of Genesis and Exodus, there's about a 400-year gap, 400 years of silence. Can you imagine in the first 5 books of the Bible? You go from Joseph bringing his family, Israel, into Egypt during that famine, right? There was a shortage of food across the land, and that's how Israel ended up coming into Egypt with Joseph as the Grand Vizier of Egypt at the time. All right, the political temperature changes drastically when we start looking at the book of Exodus. It's a different Pharaoh that's ruling. Remember, it was a Hyksos ruler before, a relative of the Shemites. All right, but when we started in the book of Exodus, we notice that the Pharaoh is an Egyptian, a native Egyptian. All right, and it's now the Israelites that are being, how do you say, what's the word? Enslaved, they're being marginalized, oppressed. Some weight is put on them. All right, they're now the ones serving the Egyptians who are now living the cushy life. They are the labor force. All right, the hard workers. So Israel's blessings, we're going back here to a quick review of Joseph and his brothers. How many brothers were there in total? 12 brothers, all right? What are their names? No, we don't. Okay, we actually played this game in the car with the kids this week. I was surprised. You guys knew all their names. But the eldest one, the layout of the camp, yeah, once you know their names, you understand how the whole camp is laid out. It's really cool, all the different tribes. All right. We know the eldest brother, Reuben, all right? He saved Joseph from being destroyed. Remember, the brothers like, let's kill him, but Reuben's like, no, don't shed blood. Throw him in the cistern here in the wilds instead. And he had the intention of rescuing him later and restoring Joseph to his father, hopefully getting his father's blessing, right? Because he already fell out of his father's favor, right? The fourth brother, Judah, he had the idea, what advantage is it to us to kill him, Joseph? Sell him instead of him being put to death by our own hands. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. So he didn't want to be guilty of bloodshed. You don't want to commit that murder, right? So they decided to sell him off into slavery instead. Once Joseph is elevated in Egypt, you read about this, all the brothers, not all the brothers, 10 of the brothers came to collect grain from Egypt to bring back home to their land in Canaan, right? And Benjamin was left at home, right? The youngest brother. We have here Joseph taking Shimon and putting him in prison until all the brothers return with Benjamin, all right? Remember, there was kind of an exchange, a guarantee. You better bring your brother Benjamin here. That way I know that you were not spies, right? So Reuben says to Jacob, if I don't bring him, Benjamin, back to you, you can kill my 2 sons, put him in my care, and I will return him to you. Reuben is really still trying to gain his father's favor. He's trying to be the responsible kuya, right? He's the eldest of them all. And he says, listen, we need to go back, but this Grand Vizier is not going to let us go if we don't bring Benjamin with us. Father didn't want to let him go because he already lost Joseph, all right? And now here's Shimon, and he's left in prison, and there's no way he's giving up Benjamin. But they're going to starve to death if they don't go. So, of course, Jacob says, yes, okay, fine, take Benjamin. But he did not let them go with Reuben's care, all right? Judah is the one that steps up. And he says, send the boy with me. I will guarantee his safety. You can hold me responsible. If I fail to bring him to you, let me bear the blame forever. So you see the difference between Reuben and Judah. Reuben's like, okay, you know what, put him in my care, and if we don't bring Benjamin back, you could kill my 2 sons. What? Like, no responsibility, no accountability. He's like going to let his sons die for his mess up, right? But here's Judah, and he's saying, I will be responsible, and if I don't bring him back, I hold the blame forever. So it's interesting that you see the character of the different brothers throughout the story that's told here in the book of Genesis. You also remember that Shimon and Levi are the brothers, the hotheads, remember, that went and killed off all the men in Shechem because their sister was defiled by the prince there. All right. So their character is also one we're going to revisit later in this study. In Genesis chapter 38, we see Judah and his sons. All right. It's a weird placement because we started reading the story of Joseph in chapter 37 when he's young, and then in 38 there's like no mention of Joseph. It's all about Judah and his sons. Why was that placed here? Why is that important that we know his family situation? Okay, Judah, he has 3 sons with the daughter of Shua. Their names are Onan, and Shelah. Judah takes a wife for his firstborn. Her name is Tamar. So Tamar is his daughter-in-law. Okay? Is considered wicked by Yehovah, so Yehovah kills him. Okay. Tamar never had a child with So Onan, the second brother, is to perform the duty of a husband's brother to preserve his brother's bloodline. All right? To preserve his brother's bloodline by sleeping with Tamar and giving children. But every time he sleeps with Tamar, he spills his semen on the ground. So he was not fulfilling his duty. So this is considered evil by Yehovah, so Yehovah kills him. So there's 2 of the 3 sons dead. Okay? Yehudah holds back young Shelah and tells Tamar, you know what, go back to your father's house until Shelah is old enough, and then you can come back later. There's no way he's giving up his last and only son, surviving son. Yehudah's wife dies, and Tamar hears about this, and she's still not given to Shelah, the 3rd son. All right? So she hears that Yehudah's going into this town, and Tamar disguises herself, takes off her widow's clothes, goes in, and she maneuvers in such a way to get Judah to sleep with her to produce a child. Okay? Judah, his wife was gone. He has needs as a man. He went and thought he met a prostitute. The prostitute that he thought he met was actually Tamar. Tamar ends up getting pregnant, and she holds on to some of his items to prove that the man that impregnated her was in fact Judah. And Judah, he is faced with this, like, oh, this Tamar, how dare she sleep around, it's like whatever. But little did he know, he was the one that impregnated Tamar. Okay, Tamar ends up having twins by this union, all right, Peretz and Serach. And there's a whole story about that. You can read about it at the end of Genesis chapter 38. There are some prophetic symbolisms that you could go and explore on your own. We're not going to discuss that in today's classroom. Study for yourselves. All right. Did I say 38? Yeah, Genesis 38. Okay, here we are, closer to the end of Genesis chapter 47. It says, Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. Thus Yaakov lived to be 147 years old. The time came when Israel was approaching death. So he called for his son, Yosef, and said to him, if you truly love me, please put your hand under my thigh and pledge that out of consideration for me, you will not bury me in Egypt. Rather, when I sleep with my fathers, you are to carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried. He replied, I will do as you have said. He said, swear it to me, and he swore it to him. Then Israel bowed down at the head of his bed. I want you to take note of those few phrases. Putting your hand under my thigh, sleeping with my fathers, and Israel bowed down his head, okay, at the head of the bed. What does it mean to put your hand under the thigh?
To swear on the seed.
To swear. I mean, like when you go to court, normally, right? You'll swear, you put your hand on, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? You'll put your hand on the Bible, put your hand up. Maybe you put your hand on your heart when you swear. I swear, I promise, and you're trying to convince somebody that you're going to do something or say something, right? Another way is when you're kids, you shake hands. Okay, shake on it. Is that a deal? Do we have a deal? Shake on it. And sometimes a handshake's not enough. Okay, pinky promise. Pinky swear, right? And we do these little things, and it's strange. Why would you link pinkies to show that you're swearing an oath to someone, right? But technically, this is a less graphic image. To put the hand under the thigh is actually to hold the testicles.
Yeah. You're swearing on the seed.
You're swearing on the seed. The testicles are where the seed comes from, for future generations, all right? And it's interesting that testicles and testify share the same root. When you give a testimony, same root as testicle, okay? So that's interesting. He goes in and we saw another instance of this, where Abraham had a servant put his hand under his thigh, or hold his testicles, to find a bride for his son. Right? And swear to me that you won't go to the wrong people, you'll go to the right people, find a wife, my son, and you're free of your duties. Okay? So here we see it's an oath and a worship that's happening here. And what is it that he's saying? He's like, promise me, swear to me that you won't let me be buried here in Egypt. I want you to take my bones, okay, when I sleep with my fathers. Okay, that's another Hebrew phrase that simply means when I die and I'm laid to rest. Okay, I want to lay where my family has been buried. And where was his family buried? In the cave of Machpelah. All right, that Abraham bought so he could bury his wife. All right, it's the only piece of land that they own. A gravesite. That's their only property that they get to enjoy when they're dead. All right, interesting. But he said, please swear to me that you will let me lay with my fathers. Take my bones with you when you leave this place. It's interesting that Joseph had the same request. When he died, don't leave my bones here. Take my bones with you. Okay? Bones are significant in the Bible as it signifies strength. The structure, the core, the center of things that hold things up, right? Don't leave my bones here in this land. Let them lay with my father's bones. It says at the end of all this, Israel bowed down at the head of his bed. That Israel bowed down, it's a sign of worship. He is thanking God for what is to come. This oath has been made. He knew that the oath was good. And he's like, yes, I will not rest here in Egypt, but I will be brought back to lay with my fathers. And he worships Jehovah in that act. So we see something about Jacob there, his character. He was kind of a trickster, right? Jacob was a bit of a trickster. In his youth, he was a little sneaky. His character was a little questionable before, but now we see him here, trusting God's word, trusting his covenant, and trusting that the future will come to pass, just as Jehovah had promised. Here we read in chapter 48, an interesting point, the cross-handed blessing. This is when Joseph takes his two sons, his Egyptian sons. Remember, his wife was an Egyptian, and the children carry whatever religion and whatever nationality the mother adheres to. And she maintained her Egyptian identity, never really considered herself to be an Israelite. Okay? So her children were in fact Egyptians. And why I say this is because Egyptians are considered Gentiles. They are not part of the Hebrew people. You have the Hebrews, the Israelites, and then you have the nations, or the Gentiles. You have God's chosen people, Israel, and everybody else. Okay? So Ephraim and Manasseh are considered goyim, Gentiles.
Everybody
Let's see what happens here. The cross-handed blessing. Then Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. But Israel put out his right hand and laid it on the head of the younger one, Ephraim. And he put his left hand on the head of Manasseh. He intentionally crossed his hands, even though Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph, the God in whose presence my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak lived, the God who has been my own shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has rescued me from all harm, bless these boys. May they remember who I am and what I stand for, and likewise my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, who they were and what they stood for. And may they grow into teeming multitudes on the earth. May they grow into teeming multitudes on the earth. That phrase, growing into teeming multitudes, the root word there, is dagah. Dagah, to multiply, to increase, okay? Dagah, right? To grow. But dagah actually comes from another word. Dag. Dag, do you remember God, one of the gods named Dagon? Dagon, the fish god. Dag means fish. And how do fish multiply? They spawn. Right? It's a lot. Alright? You ever see all that caviar? All that caviar, they didn't become fish. But they should have become fish. They became your dinner. Okay? But you see how much they multiply. That's the sort of picture that we get, this multiplicity, this fish, all right? What would happen with Ephraim and Manasseh? They would multiply and spread out like the fish. Okay. That cross-handed blessing, these are Joseph's 2 Egyptian sons. But he was blessing Joseph through these 2 sons. In essence, he adopts these 2 Egyptian boys as his own sons so that he could give out the proper allotment of land for each of his sons. Doing this, Joseph indirectly receives 2 lots of land. He receives a double portion over all the rest of his brothers. Okay? Interesting, right? The favorite son, Joseph, gets the double portion. It doesn't always go to the firstborn. But Joseph was the firstborn of his favorite wife. Alright?
Yeah.
Let's look at this continuing. When Joseph saw that his father was laying his right hand on top of Ephraim's head, it displeased him. And he lifted up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head and place it instead on Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, "Don't do it that way, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know that, my son. I know it. He too will become a people, and he too will be greater than he, and his descendants will grow into many nations." Then he added this blessing on them that day. "Israel will speak of you in their own blessings by saying, 'May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh.'" Thus he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh, the second son over the firstborn. Let's look at the family tree. Abraham, was he the firstborn? No? No? Second, okay. Who were his children? Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael from the first Hagar, and Isaac from Sarah. Alright, so who's older? Ishmael is older, but Isaac is the one that's identified, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Alright, Jacob was a twin. The younger twin. Alright, so Esau and Jacob, the second twin. And the blessing in this line, skipping over Joseph to his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and of course Ephraim is the one that receives this blessing to multiply as a nation. He too will become a people, and he too will be greater than he, and his descendants will grow into many nations. Nations is an interesting word when we read this in the Bible. It's not just talking about Canada, USA, like all the different countries in the world. When we read that word nations, it's goyim. Okay? Goyim. Did I not make a note on this? It might show up later. Here we go. All right, so that's the cross-handed blessing in Genesis 48. Genesis 49, Jacob gives each of his 12 sons his own individual blessing. We're going to read through this. This is fun, okay? Because these words are spoken about each of these sons, and what the tribes become later, it's in keeping with what was spoken over their life. It's almost like these words prophesied over them of what they would become. A lot of what Jacob saw of his sons, he lived to be how old? 147? All right, so he had a lot of time to know their character. He had a lot of time to see how they were growing up. Genesis 49. Then Yaakov called for his sons and said, "Gather yourselves together, and I will tell you what will happen to you in the Yaharith Hayamim, the days to come. Assemble yourselves and listen, sons of Yaakov. Pay attention to Israel, your father." It's interesting. Yaakov, and then he refers to himself as Israel. All right? Pay attention to Israel, your father, because what he's speaking, it's about the nation of Israel and what they will become. Okay? Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the first fruits of my manhood. Though superior in vigor and power, you are unstable as water. So your superiority will end, because you climbed into your father's bed and defiled it. He climbed onto my concubine's couch! Exclamation mark. He let everybody hear it. Okay. All the sons are present for this, by the way. It's not one by one. He said, "Reuben, you're done. Passed over." Okay? He climbed onto my concubine's couch. Verse 5. Shimon and Levi. It's funny that they're paired together. Okay? Shimon and Levi are brothers related by weapons of violence. Let me not enter their counsel. Let my honor not be connected with their people. For in their anger they killed men, and at their whim they maimed cattle. Cursed be their anger, for it has been fierce. Their fury, for it has been cruel. I will divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Israel. Yehuda, Judah. Your brothers will acknowledge you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub. My son, you stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lion, like a lioness. Who dares to provoke him? The scepter will not pass from Yehuda, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes to whom obedience belongs. And it is he whom the peoples will obey. Tying his donkey to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice grapevine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun will live at the seashore with ships anchoring along his coast and his border at Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down in the sheep's sheds. On seeing how good is settled life and how pleasant the country, he will bend his back to the burden and submit to forced labor. Dan. Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a viper on the road, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heels, so its rider falls off backward. I wait for your deliverance, Jehovah. It's a strange place where I wait for your deliverance, Jehovah. It might have just been Jacob expressing a moment of pain or anguish. It's kind of a misplaced phrase. Okay. Gad. Gad, which means troop. A troop will troop on him, but he will troop on their heel. If I was Gad, I'd be like, come on, couldn't you be more original than that? A troop will troop on him, but he will troop on their heel. Asher's food is rich. He will provide food fit for a king. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Here's a long one for his favorite, Joseph. Joseph is a fruitful plant by a spring, with branches climbing over the wall. The archers attacked him fiercely, shouting at him and pressing him hard, but his bow remained taut, and his arms were made nimble by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. From the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father, who will help you, by El Shaddai, who will bless you with blessings from the deep, lying below, blessings from the breasts and the womb. The blessings of your father are more powerful than the blessings of my parents, extending to the farthest of the everlasting hills. They will be on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. And Benjamin. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, devouring the prey. In the evening, still dividing the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is how their father spoke to them and blessed them, giving each his own individual blessing. What a way to go, eh? You're kind of there, you're on your deathbed, you get an opportunity to talk to all your kids, all your sons, and then you get to speak your mind. You, Reuben, come on. You remember what you did long ago. I never let you live that one down, right? Shimon and Levi, oh, you got passed over too. But Judah, you will rule. The scepter will not pass from your hand. Who came from the tribe of Judah eventually? Yeshua came from the tribe of Judah. All the Jews came from the tribe of Judah. All right? The Lion of Judah. Here we have the 12 tribes of Israel. And like we said from the last chapter, Ephraim and Manasseh are now listed here amongst the 12 tribes. We've done this before, math. Who likes math? I like math. All right, so how many sons are there? 12 sons, and each son represents one tribe. There are 12 tribes, but Joseph, he gets taken out, all right, and his 2 sons are adopted in. So 12 minus 1 equals 11. So there's 11 tribes there. And then you add in 2 more tribes to the 11. 11 plus 2 is 13. Wow, I did the math for you, so you guys really, no reason you should not be able to answer that. Alright.
Where's my calculator?
But when have you ever really heard about the 13 tribes of Israel?
In the kids' class.
In the kids' class. They know, right?
They know.
The effect of the cross-handed blessing would be manifested about 450 years later, and the special treatment of the tribe of Levi. Remember, Levi, okay, he doesn't get any land. Okay? Instead, well, technically, they don't get their own piece of land. They're given a portion of land around everybody else's land, surrounding their cities. Okay? But nothing of their own. The tribe of Levi is where the priesthood comes from. Interesting, the priesthood don't have a land of their own. And the priesthood is divided amongst all the cities, or the tribe of Levi is separated surrounding all the different cities. Okay? And this is 450 years later when we would see how all this plays out. So if you take Levi out, he doesn't get an allotment of land. So there's only 12 lots. Okay? Those 12 lots are dispersed amongst all the other brothers, including Ephraim and Manasseh, as a double portion for Joseph. Okay, good. Yes. Hanging on there. I know it looks like a bunch of lists, but this is really cool. You got the 12 sons. They're all listed here, right? Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun. And then, of course, we have Joseph and little brother Benjamin. That's how they're first given to us in Genesis. In the book of Numbers, where they count everything, censuses are taken, we notice that the names up here remain pretty similar, except Levi's taken out. Right? He doesn't get a piece of land. And the list continues on as usual. We get down here, instead of Joseph, he's replaced by his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and they each get an allotment of land. Manasseh ends up getting split up into two half tribes. Half of them stay on the east of the Jordan, and the other half go on the west of the Jordan with the rest of the tribes. Reuben also stayed on the east of the Jordan. In the book of Revelation, however, look, you see all these names show up again. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Manasseh, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun. Joseph is back. Levi is back. Ephraim's missing. Who else is missing? Dan. What happened there? You read the blessing. Dan was like the viper, the snake. Interesting, and he's not there. He's not listed here in the book of Revelation. Interesting. What does it mean? Go study for yourselves. I just wanted to point it out so you have something to look up. What happened to Dan? Look it up. All right? What happened to Ephraim? Why isn't he there anymore? All right? You got Manasseh instead. Interesting. Is it interesting or is it just me?
No, it's so weird.
You're a nerd. So, you're a Bible nerd. I get it. Anybody else? Is this interesting?
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, you're a Bible nerd too. I hope you all become more like Bible nerds. Okay? Because when we see these things, they might look like inconsistencies. Alright? There are patterns that we need to look at when we study the scriptures. There are some things that lead us to ask questions. If we're not asking questions, we're not really studying. We're just reading. And sometimes you could just read anything and it won't register. It won't make sense. You won't understand the gravity of things. Alright? But all these lists are here for a reason throughout the Bible. If they didn't matter, they wouldn't be listed. Right? Here we go. Multitude of nations. Alright, so, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations, because in Hebrew we're reading from right to left. Okay? Melo hagoyim, a multitude of nations. Goyim, nations, also Gentiles. Okay? Melo hagoyim gives us that phrase, the fullness of the Gentiles. The fullness of the Gentiles. And here it's talking about Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay? They would become a multitude of nations, a multitude of Gentiles. The fullness of the Gentiles referred to Ephraim and Manasseh in that blessing. It tells us that the physical descendants of Israel were going to become the Melo Hagoyim and multiply like the fishes and physically become Gentiles. They would forget their identity as part of Israel and get lost among the Gentile nations. Physical seed become physical Gentiles as they mix in with the nations. It's interesting, in Christianity today we see that ichthys fish, right? It's a symbol that's known by, how about this? The 5 loaves and the 2 fish. The 2 fish represent their different interpretations, okay? But it also represents the 2 houses of Israel. Remember, Israel was divided into 2 kingdoms, the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, right? Ephraim, Israel, and Judah. The 2 houses together make up the whole house of Israel. And what are the 5 fish, the 5 loaves of bread? This is the Torah. God's Torah and His people. His word and His people. That feed the multitude, the nations. Alright? And He's pointing out here, He is going to bring back the house of Israel. Chew on that, He says. Here's some fish, here's some bread. Oh, how many baskets were left over? 12 baskets left over. Come on. How many tribes are there? 12. Come on. You're not making this up. Come on. These are God's patterns. If you don't think this is cool, you're sleeping under a rock. This is become a Bible nerd. Because really, you'll see the patterns. All right, you'll see the patterns. You'll understand that God is telling one big story. From Genesis all the way to Revelation, we're looking at the 12 tribes, the names of the sons. We understand what became of them. We read their story throughout in the prophets when they're being called back. And God didn't destroy them, but He was disciplining them throughout the whole scriptures. He loves His people Israel. He didn't discard them, get rid of them, and then come up with a new group and say, oh, you Christians are now my people. No. No.
I think it's important at this point to keep reminding ourselves, as North Americans, we tend to think very Greek, very linear, very sequential, very compartmentalized. And what Tim is talking about here, what God does is always in a cycle, always in seasons. Things keep coming back. So when we think something is labeled old, it's foundational. That's what it means. It's ancient. It's not something to be forgotten or discarded. When something is new, it's something to study, something to ponder on, something to chew on, because it has to build upon something of the past, but it's never discarded, never thrown away.
The new doesn't replace what came before.
Right. The Greek thinking is old and new, discard, replace. But Hebrew thought, cycles, summer, winter, fall.
Yeah. The seasons, they keep cycling every year, right? Same thing. You start to learn what to expect. All right? You know how to prepare for the next time it comes around. You remember things, right? Oh, I remember that ice storm that happened back in the day. As soon as the snow starts falling, it reminds you of things. Same thing, when you see God's patterns playing out through the scriptures, it ought to remind you of what came before. All right? The covenants keep getting renewed. All right? And built upon. All right? And this is how God does this in His Word. And He's revealed all that to us just in the Bible alone. But He's still doing it even in our lives. I'm sure if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you will start receiving these revelations from God that He's still working and He's still trying to reveal things to you so you can come to know more of who He is and what He's about. Isn't that what Jacob wanted for the sons of Joseph? I want you to know what I'm about and what I stand for. The same thing, what my fathers, who they were and what they stand for. Because they were living, trusting in the covenant that God made with them. And He said, I want these generations to remember this. He adopted the Gentiles into His family so they could remember the covenant that was given to Israel. Interesting. Oh, that's just for the Jews, we say. We have no part having any sort of relationship with God. We have nothing to trust in if we don't trust in the covenants and the promises that He made with His people, Israel. Because all the promises and covenants were made with Israel.
So the Gentiles were they adopted or attached to the covenants,
Yes.
to the promises.
That's right. And
That's the nation.
they received those promises. They received their land, didn't they? All right. Hebrews 11 is that faith chapter, the popular faith chapter, by faith or by trusting. In verse 21, it says, by trusting, Yaakov, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons, leaning on his walking stick as he bowed in prayer. Once again, we see him here worshiping, right? We see him relying, leaning on his walking stick. He's relying on the guidance of God in this. Despite his past flaws, he displayed profound faith at the end of his life, showing God's grace transforms people. He blessed Joseph's sons, adopting them as his own, and bowed in worship, acknowledging God's sovereignty over his future and theirs. Leaning on his staff symbolized reliance on God's support and His promises. He didn't rely on worldly possessions, and he looked forward to the Israelites' future redemption from Egypt. And there's a prophetic vision when he gave this blessing over all his sons. It foreshadows God's faithfulness to the covenant. It's interesting that these are the last words that we read about in the book of Genesis. They're blessing over his children, and it's a prophetic vision that point back to God's faithfulness to his covenant. Anybody familiar with the book of Hosea? Yeah? Somewhat? Gist of it. If you had a word to describe the theme of this book, what would it be? Or a phrase?
It's Hosea representing how God loves his people even though they turn their back on him multiple times.
Yep.
And also showing his heart that he's working
Yep.
while he's loving us and trying to save us.
Absolutely. And how did he do that? What did he tell Hosea to do?
Go
To
and
take
marry
on
Gomer.
a wife of scandalous nature.
Go and marry
Don't marry a scandalous woman,
Yeah.
prostitute.
a prostitute. She of the nations? She was Goyim? Yeah.
Goya.
Yeah. So, this unfaithful woman.
Wasn't she his wife already? And she left him and then he had to
Yeah,
take her
yeah.
back?
Yes,
Yeah.
take her back.
Yes.
He was commanded to take her back.
Commanded to take her back, which is interesting because normally the command is once you divorce your wife because of the indiscretion, you're not to take her back.
So their sin will come back to you.
He bought it back.
Right.
though. He bought it back.
It's just interesting when you say, well, did he make Hosea sin? Well, that's a whole other conversation. But here's a little phrase in verses 9 to 11 in the book of Hosea chapter 1. Behold, he said, name him Lo Ami, not my people, because you are not my people, and I will not be your God. Nevertheless, the people of Israel will number as many as the grains of the sand by the sea, which cannot be measured or counted. So that the time will come when instead of being told you are not my people, it will be said to them, you are the children of the living God. Then the people of Judah and the people of Israel will be gathered together. So you see God's plan being brought here. First he says, you are not my people. You'll name them, you are not my people. The Gentiles are the nations, right? But then he has his plan of bringing the people of Judah and the people of Israel back together, united. The two houses reunited. This is not only an Old Testament concept. We read about it again in the book of Romans, Romans chapter 11. We're looking at verses 24 to 27 here. For if you were cut out of what is by nature a wild olive tree and grafted, contrary to nature, into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these natural branches be grafted back into their own olive tree? For brothers, I want you to understand this truth which God formerly concealed but has now revealed, so that you won't imagine you know more than you actually do. It is that stoniness to a degree has come upon Israel, until the Gentile world enters in its fullness, the fullness of the Gentiles. And that it is in this way that all Israel will be saved. As the Tanakh says, out of Zion will come the Redeemer. He will turn away ungodliness from Yaakov, and this will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. There's that covenant, talking about what he's going to do. Turn away ungodliness from Yaakov, and they will be my covenant with them. This will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. So we read there the fullness of the Gentiles, and it's in this way that all Israel will be saved. You have the divided kingdom. Northern kingdom, southern kingdom. The northern kingdom, when you read Israel, in a lot of the rest of the Bible, you'll notice that's referred to the northern kingdom alone. Okay? When we get into the prophets. The southern kingdom is Judah. This here is comprised of the 10 tribes. Okay? The northern kingdom. Judah, it was just Judah and Benjamin. And a little bit of Levi. Remember? But Levi didn't have land. The northern kingdom, the ruling tribe, was the largest one. It was Ephraim. So sometimes Israel would be called Ephraim. Ephraim, Israel. Okay? It gets confusing when you read in the Bible and they keep changing the names. But understand that they're all talking about the same thing. Okay? The northern kingdom. Because that had the majority, the 10 tribes as well. And Ephraim, we learned, is later spread out into the Gentile nations. The southern kingdom, Judah, remains, it's a remnant of all the Israelites. They maintained their identity because they tried to obey the law. All right, that's where the Jews are. This is where the temple was.
They were called the Jews.
They were called the Jews. The Jews came from Judah. The Jews are not all of Israel. When you see Jews, they're referring just to the tribe of Judah. 1 of 12. But I think today when we hear the word Jew and we associate it with Israel, we think, oh, well, Jews, then it's Israel. There's so many more people that make up Israel than the Jews. Okay? But what happened to all these brothers? They kind of lost their identity as they started blending in with the rest of the Gentile nations. Do you know that story about the Samaritan woman at the well? All right, in John chapter 4 we read about it. And one phrase she says, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for water from me, a woman of Shomron," a Samaritan woman? She goes, "You Jews have nothing to do with us." She kind of has an idea about who she is. She knows she's not a Jew. She makes that distinction. But then look at verse 12. "You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you?" She knew she was from Jacob. She knew her heritage as an Israelite. But she knew she wasn't a Jew. And she goes, "You Jews have nothing to do with us. You hate us so much. Why would you ask me for water?" Something about that identity. Samaritans were half-breeds. They blended with Assyria, okay, and the 10 northern tribes. And that's where they started getting split apart. Okay, this is hundreds of years later, right? Hundreds and hundreds of years later. And she's talking to Yeshua at the well. But she still knew. And it's like, oh, where do you worship? You go to the mountains to worship your gods, right? And then that's where he goes. There will come a time where you will worship in spirit and in truth, right? And he's talking to a Samaritan, not a Jew, but she is part of the house of Israel, isn't she? She is part of the lost tribes of Israel. And who did Yeshua come to save? Who was he sent to? What was his mission field? The lost of Israel. Of course he took time to talk to the Samaritan woman. That's exactly his mission field. We don't think about that. We think, oh, Samaritans and Jews, they hated each other. Oh, they're enemies. Oh, look at Jesus. He was being so, what's that word? Accommodating. Crossing the border. So inclusive. He's so accepting, you know, it's like, he wasn't like the other Jews.
That's a nice
He
guy.
compromised. What a nice thing. Let's compromise like Jesus did.
Open borders.
Open borders. No boundaries. No. He knew who he was talking to. It wasn't just someone that they hated. No. Why did he talk about a good Samaritan? And the Levite that crossed the road. The priest that crossed the road. And it wasn't until the Samaritan came along to help a Jew. And he was still talking about the 2 houses of Israel helping one another.
Even today, our mentality is, let's go far, let's go to a third world country, let's do mission trips away. But some of the people that are closest to us, our cousins, our loved ones, are living in our very own house.
Yeah.
We don't have this kind of compassion for them. We are the hardest for those that are closest to us. But we want to do so much for everybody else. Why do we do that?
There's someone who described the lost as those whom God misses the most. So he came for them.
Right. Sometimes the lost are the ones that are right there in the same house.
But
Right.
lost sheep. He left the 99 and went after the one lost one.
Same house, same house.
Oh,
Matthew 15:24, he answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, maybe you missed that statement before. Maybe it didn't mean anything when you read it in the Bible. It's in the Gospels, Matthew 15. It's not like some obscure book in the Bible. This is one of those that everybody reads. I'm sure you probably read over this passage once before and it never meant anything to you. Because you're like, well, I'm not Israel, what does this have to do with me, whatever. But Yeshua was sent, his mission while he was here on earth, during that time, only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But here we are today, so many Christians today. Oh, Jesus died for me. I'm not a Jew, I'm a Gentile, and he died for me. And now I'm part of his church, and too bad for the Israelites, and too bad for the Jews, because God ditched them, and now we're his new people. He ditched his old covenant, and now we're in a new covenant. We're no longer under the law, we're under grace. And we have all these phrases, and we're saying these things, and we sound ignorant to anybody that actually knows what the scriptures say. How dare we take these Christianese language things, try to apply them to us, and sell it to other people to say, you need Jesus in your life, believe it the way that I believe it, live the way that I do, and you don't have to worry about anything, because Jesus paid it all, and no matter what sinner you are, you get to go to heaven and be with him. You don't have to face hell. All you have to do is believe. Say his name, say this prayer, now I'm a Christian. It's the greatest deception of our day. Greatest deception because people's souls and lives are being sold into this. It's like a den of thieves. People are buying what the church is selling, and it's not the gospel truth. It's their own gospel.
Maybe many people miss that word only.
Yeah.
It's easy to read through it and say, yay, that's me. It says only. So the question is, if we think we belong to the house of Israel and we're they saved, did he come for me?
I believe his work that was finally completed extended it to include and invite others, but it had always been that way. It was patterned when Jacob took on Ephraim and Manasseh. Who were some of the other Gentiles that entered into the Israelite camp? Do you guys remember, out of all the people that left Egypt, there were only 2 men that were over the age of 20 that were able to make it into the promised land 40 years later. Do you remember their names?
Caleb.
Joshua and Caleb. Did you know Caleb was a Gentile?
Yeah. Isn't that nerdy? So nerdy.
Super nerdy. He was one of the only people that were able to enter the promised land. All right? God promised them this land, and he availed of those promises, but he was a Gentile. Upon entering, he would have been over 60 years old. Right? Who else? Ruth. Rahab. Ruth. They're in the lineage that led up to Yeshua.
And some of the only women included in that.
Some of the only women included. A woman included in the scriptures, but her name is given. Wow. That's a big deal. Okay? Take note. Did you notice when we read about Judah, it never mentioned his wife's name. It was the daughter of Shua. And when the daughter of Shua died, his wife, it never said her name. But we know Tamar's name. And how God used Tamar. Because Tamar would have been one of the great grandmothers of Yeshua. Ruth, great grandmother of Yeshua,
I'll understand all.
right? The lineage David, King David came from there as well.
Let it be known.
See, and it's not saying that you have to be perfect and you have to live such a way. It's like, no, really, God will use anybody, and a lot of the time He'll use you in your ugliness and whatever it is. I like what Joseph said at the end of Genesis, right, where he says, you meant it for harm, but God meant it for good. He took what was meant for harm and used it for good. It shows God's sovereignty. It shows that He is still in control. That no matter what choices we make, that isn't what makes God change His mind, right? We can make whatever choices, but whatever God wills, it will happen. Because He said so. Will it happen exactly the way? It ends up the way that He wills. It's wise to be more like Yeshua, like He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, where He said, not my will, but yours be done. Instead of fighting God with our will, when we say, God, this is what I want for my life, bless it, make it happen for me. This is what I really want, so if you make it happen, then I will serve you. If you bless me this way, then I will give my life to you. What? Stop it. That's not how it is. Lay your will down. Seek what the Father wants. And everything you need in this life, guess what? He provides it. He provides what you need. You still have a few slides to get through.
So much more.
So much more. Isaiah 49, verse 5 to 6. So now Yehovah says, He formed me in the womb to be His servant, to bring Yaakov back to Him, to have Israel gathered to Him, so that I will be honored in sight of Yehovah, my God, having become my strength. He has said, It is not enough that you are merely my servant to raise up the tribes of Yaakov and restore the offspring of Israel. I will also make you a light to the nations, Leor Goyim. So my salvation, Yeshua T, can spread to the ends of the earth. I will make you a light to the nations, so my salvation can spread to the ends of the earth. It's not enough that you're a servant to raise up the tribes. It's not enough that you are just going to restore the house of Israel. Okay? I will also make you a light to the nations. Leor Goyim. So my salvation can spread to the ends of the earth. He comes to the lost tribes of Israel. And Yeshua is raised up from the tribe of Judah. And His finished work, He said, I am a light. I am the light of the world. Then He says to His followers, you are the light of the world. And it's up to those people that He was teaching. Who was He teaching? He was teaching Israel. He told them, you are the light of the world. He didn't tell the Gentiles that they were the light of the world. So if you read the Bible and you say, oh, I'm the light of the world, if you don't see yourself as grafted in to Israel, to the covenant promises, I don't know what your faith is hanging on. I don't know what you are trusting in. Because Yehovah only made covenants with the house of Israel. It's in this way the fullness of the Gentiles. Remember, Ephraim was dispersed, and they lost their identity. And this is representative of the fullness of the Gentiles spread out through the earth. Physical Israel became physical Gentiles, but then those Gentiles could spiritually become part of the house of Israel. Jeremiah 31:15 to 16, this is what Yehovah says, stop your weeping and dry your eyes, for your work will be rewarded, says Yehovah. They will return from the enemy's land, so there is hope for your future, says Yehovah. Your children will return to their own territory. See, back to the land. It's in Jeremiah 31 that we actually read about the new covenant. It's not a New Testament concept. 31 to 33. Here the days are coming, says Yehovah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers on the day I took them by their hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt, because they for their part violated my covenant, even though I for my part was a husband to them. That's where we get that link to Hosea. Okay. Says Jehovah. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Jehovah. I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God and they will be my people. No longer will any of them teach his fellow community member of his or his brother, know Jehovah, for all will know me, from the least of them to the greatest, because I will forgive their wickednesses, and remember their sins no more. So you see, this new covenant, it's not a different covenant, but the way that it's delivered. The first covenant was written on tablets of stone. The new covenant would be written on their hearts. It comes from a physical thing to a spiritual thing. You see? But it's the same covenant. Renewed covenant. Delivery is a little bit different. You used to go and buy your stuff at the store. Now you get it Amazon. You still get your product. All right? Same product you're looking for, but there's delivery. The delivery method is a little different, but you still get the same thing. I know that was a cheap thing, but I think it helps us understand, right?
It's relatable.
It's relatable.
Uber Eats.
Uber Eats. Uber Eats or go to the restaurant. Just get the same food. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay, Ezekiel 37:15-22, the two sticks, prophecy of the two sticks. This one comes after the prophecy of the dry bones, the valley of dry bones. I encourage you, go home, read Ezekiel 37 from beginning to end, all right? But here today we're reading verses 15-22. The word of Jehovah came to me, you human being, take one stick and write on it for Judah, and those joined with him among the people of Israel. Next, take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel who are joined with him. Finally, bring them together in a single stick, so that they become one in your hand. When your people ask you what all this means, tell them that Adonai Elohim says this. I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, together with the tribes of Israel, who are joined with him, and put them together with the stick of Judah, and make them a single stick, so that they will become one in my hand. The sticks on which you write are to be in your hand as a watch. Then say to them, Adonai Elohim says, I will take the people of Israel from among the nations where they have gone and gather them from every side and bring them back to their own land. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king will be king for all of them. They will no longer be two nations, and they will never again be divided into two kingdoms. The prophecy of the two sticks.
Is that being fulfilled today?
Is that being fulfilled today? So many of the lost tribes of Israel have been returning to the land, Israel. Okay. Now, not to be confused with some of the political things in Zionism and other movements that are on the prowl. A lot of Christians are being deceived into buying into a lot of these Zionist movements. Okay, but we have to see that the prophecies that are spoken about are coming true before our very eyes. In these last days, all these things will happen. Okay? Where people are returning back to the land. This pattern will go further even into the future. When Yeshua returns, all people will be gathered back to where? To the New Jerusalem. And they will go and observe the Feast of Sukkot. All right? And God, He's still working all this together. From Genesis to Revelation, into our future as well, friends. We will be gathered together to be with Him in His land. The two sticks prophecy. Putting them together in a single stick so they become one in your hand. Romans 11:26. And so all Israel shall be saved. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. All Israel will be saved. Friends, have you been grafted in as part of Israel? Are you not sure? Let's study more. Let's continue asking questions. It might be confusing. And there might be a lot of things we need to unlearn or a lot of biases we need to lay down, okay? To start just reading the Bible with fresh eyes and get on the Torah portions, friends. There's so much there. You will pick up more and more after 4-5 years of doing this. Man, we're still getting so much revelation off of just a couple chapters each week. It's good stuff. And you start to see that these aren't just stories. We're not only reading the first 5 books. We also read from the prophets, and we also read from the New Testament, and it shows how the whole Bible holds the things that we need for our faith as we follow Yeshua, as we see ourselves as the children of Jehovah. Okay? Any questions? Comments? Did we go too fast? No? All right. A little fast?
Start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning. You know what? We start from the beginning every year. All right?
Yeah,
Get on
every
the
year.
Torah portions and keep learning. It's a cycle, okay? I always pray for something fresh and something new and something life-giving. That is my prayer for all of you that are studying with us here, that God will reveal that to you. Something fresh, something new, and something life-giving. All that we need, you know what? He's already given in His Word. Are you feeding on His Word? Are you drinking of His Spirit? I want you to be filled with joy as you encounter God through His Word.
Just to clarify, Israel, the text doesn't mean the nation of Israel.
Not the nation.
It's the true Israel.
It's the covenant nation.
Yes.
The covenant nation. All believers, all right? Not Jew nor Gentile, right? All believers are part of that Israel. Okay? Not all people in Israel are part of
the
Israel.
believer, yeah. Exactly.
Okay? That's a physical thing. We're looking at the greater, bigger spiritual reality. And God brings the physical and the spiritual together. Okay?
A good way to answer your question is, are you Israel? Are you wrestling with God? Because that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're not, it might be time to start taking a look at where we are in our relationship with God. Because if we are wrestling with God, if we still are asking questions, it means the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit's still working.
Mhm.
And that's the Spirit of Messiah in us, trying to get us to wake up and wrestle.
That's good. Very good. Any last words? May the grace of our Lord Yeshua and the shalom of Yehovah, our Father, be with us all.
Thank you.